Alrighty, so as I mentioned in the previous video, I was going through the installation of Git and Visual Studio Code on a Mac. In this video, I'm going to go over the installations of those two things on Windows. So the intention of this video is to walk you through the process on Windows if you've never done any web development before. So we're going to start from the very beginning. So Git is something necessary to install because it allows us to use GitHub to push our local code to a repository online that can then be shared. So you can share your actual code with people and they can look it over and they can suggest changes. And it also allows us to host projects online for free. Visual Studio Code is the program we're going to use to create the code for each of our projects. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install Git for Windows. So we're going to go to gitforwindows.org. You can see it's popping up here already. I'm going to press enter, and all we're going to do here is click on the download button. Okay, once that has finished downloading, we're going to click on it here to launch the setup. We're going to click yes. We want to install it. And we're going to go through the setup here. So we're going to click next. And next, you can install it wherever you want. And yeah, we're going to install in that folder anyway. So we do want to make sure that we have checked our Windows Explorer integration. Our Git bash is very important. It allows us to create a Git-related terminal by right-clicking anywhere in a folder. And that's important if you ever want to create a new Angular project in a folder, for example. So we're going to leave that as it is. Make sure these boxes are checked here. And we'll click next, next. And so now it's asking you to choose the default editor. And for this, you can actually go down the drop-down and select Visual Studio Code as the default editor. And you can actually click on this link, and it will launch to the site to actually download Visual Studio Code. And we're just going to click this download button here. Okay, and once that's finished downloading, we're actually going to run this setup before we finish our Git setup. So we're going to accept the terms, click next. You can choose whichever folder you want, but that's fine for me. I'm going to click next, next again. And the other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add these two things here. So I want to add Open with Code action to the Windows Explorer file context menu. And I also want to add the Open with Code action to the directory context menu. And you know what? I'll also register it as the default text editor for supported types. And I'll also create a desktop icon. You don't have to do that. And I'm going to click next and install. Okay, so this is done installing, but I'm not going to launch it right yet. I'm going to just click finish, and I'm going to close the browser to jump back to our Git setup. So you can see here that the next button is grayed out because it's saying you should use this editor, but we don't have it currently. If we go back and then we go forward, you can see that now we can go next because we have Visual Studio Code installed. And for the rest of these settings, I'm just going to use whatever the recommended settings are. So I'm just going to click next, 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 next. And I'm not going to install the experimental support, and just click next there. Okay, so that's it. I'm not going to worry about viewing the release notes, so I'm just going to uncheck that, click next, and we're finished installing it. So you're going to notice that almost all the course is recorded on Mac, but I actually spend most of my life using Windows. So there's a few advantages to using Windows when it comes to Visual Studio Code and Git. And again, they're related to the Windows Explorer context menu. So I'm in my JS course folder, and we'll talk about our templates in the next couple videos, but I just wanted to right click to show you the things that we added to our Windows Explorer. So if I click on Git Bash here, this allows me to create a terminal in the folder that I'm currently in. So instead of having to cd into the location, you can just open the folder in Windows, right click, open Git Bash to automatically have a terminal within that folder. So that's very handy. And the other thing is that I find super handy on Windows that I don't have on Mac is that I'm able to right click on any folder and use the Open with Code option. And this automatically opens Visual Studio Code directly into this folder. So you can see I'm in my template folder here. So I find that very, very useful. So if you are using Windows for the code, feel free to take advantage of using that, even though in the videos I'm creating, I'm not able to do it that way because I'm working on a Mac. Okay. So that's about it for the Windows version of our setup for Git and Visual Studio Code. You can follow along from video 3 onwards in this section. The rest of the things I will show on Mac, but the rest of everything will apply to both Mac and Windows users. And that goes for almost everything else. Well, everything else within the course will apply for both Windows and Mac users. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or have any issues with your setup on Windows, or if it operates a little bit differently than it does in my videos, please let me know. All right, that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.